Good evening, Martin.
Hi Blair, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Slight change to the for me tonight in front of the camera rather than behind the camera. There's a vicious rumour circling that Andy's been binned after some mispronunciation, but that's not true. He's getting some well-deserved time off, and I'm absolutely thrilled with tonight's guest, Melissa. She's just backstage. I think it's probably time to bring her out. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Let's get her out.
Excellent. Good evening, Melissa.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I say good evening, but what is it, about 11:30 your time over there?
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, 11:30 exactly. Yep.
Excellent. And just out, morning session done. Gym session, was it?
We just had a sand session. I just came back, and then I'm going to hit the gym right here, right after this call.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I want to get straight down to it. We're going to cut it into two kind of sections. I'm going to talk a little bit about your journey, and Martin's then after that going to look at some of the kind of technical aspects. So we're live on Facebook and on YouTube. So if any of the viewers want to put a wee question in the bottom, they can let us know and we'll get them up there. I think I want to start in 2019, mainly because 2020 has been a bit of a rubbish year for everybody. But 2019 was a particularly special year for you. World champion, World Tour champion, Team of the Year, Best Setter, Best Defender, AVP newcomer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. What an amazing year. How was it for you?
It was pretty special. I have to say, even with you just like kind of rattling off the list of achievements, a lot of that still hasn't hit me. And it's an honor to recognize that I am a world champion and, you know, one of the best players in the world. That's something that I've worked a long time for. Didn't honestly think it would happen this quickly. But yeah, 2019 was a very special year. A lot of ups and, you know what, a lot of downs too. We can definitely talk about that. But 2019 was a great year. 2019 was a great year.
And a final win against the American pairing. I know there's a bit of rivalry between Canada and America. You're obviously based down there training America, don't you? Was that a bit of stick backwards and forwards or a bit of banter between you and the American pair?
Yes, always some banter. There's a big rivalry. And I think, you know, I don't think we've actually ever played a team as many times as we've played this particular team, and especially not in like high pressure matches. We played them like 11 or 12 times, and a lot of those are in finals or medal matches. So it's good fun, you know. It's high caliber volleyball. It's always a good time. There's some tension on the court sometimes, but off the court, you know, we're all friendly. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And obviously, because of that, there's a qualification there for the Olympics. Does that take a bit of pressure off, or do you think that adds a bit more pressure on that you're going into the Olympics qualified in that position?
Interesting. Yeah, I think currently it takes a lot of pressure off of us because we already have that spot clinched, and a lot of other players, you know, in the middle of a pandemic don't know what the qualification process is going to look like. They don't know if they've qualified. They don't know how it's going to, or like what it's going to come down to. So currently right now we're sitting in quarantine or in our living rooms and we're happy knowing that we've qualified. We don't really take a back seat though. We're not really coasting just because we've qualified. We want to make sure that we go in with a really nice seeding, that we're heading in with the same kind of intensity and medal threat opportunity as we've always wanted.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So from 2019, I want to jump back to, I think it's age 12 or so. Is that when you started playing the game? Is that right?
Yeah, that's when I started playing competitively back in Canada, in our province.
And was that beach? Is that playing beach? Is that right? So you started off on the sand?
Yeah. I started off playing beach volleyball, which I know is unorthodox. A lot of people start playing indoor, but I started with the beach, and that was influenced from my father, who kind of exposed me to the sport at a really young age, and I just fell for it super quickly. And then I dabbled with some indoor here and there, you know, in university I did that for a little bit, and it was the best time of my life. I had amazing time, and Carly was one of my teammates back at that university. And yeah, I just knew that my true love and passion was on the beach, and that's kind of where I was going to be able to go as far as I wanted, and be able to achieve those goals and dreams that I had.
Yeah, so am I right in saying your dad's a volleyball player, your mum was a ballerina? Was that right? So did you grow up around, have a choice? Did you nearly find yourself doing ballet, or?
My mom tried. She tried really hard when I was young. She put me in a tutu when I was about 2, and I threw a tantrum, and the teacher didn't know what to do with me. So that was kind of the end of my dancing career. I didn't really inherit any of her grace or coordination at all. I think I was born to play beach volleyball. So that was an easy decision for me, much to the heartbreak of my mom, though. I'm sure she wanted me to dance.
And at uni, you played at university. How did you find being at college and studying and balancing that pro athlete or getting towards that elite athlete level of trying to study and do your academic stuff whilst also training and competing?
Yeah, that is a tough balance for everybody. And I think it took me a lot of trial and error for sure to figure it out. It took me a couple of years to manage both. But at the end of the day, I kind of wanted to make sure that I had an education solidified, because sport is it's unpredictable, it's uncertain, and you never know. I mean, there's a certain time in your life where you can do sports, and I wanted to take advantage of that. But I also didn't want to like fully rely on that. I wanted to have some kind of background, some education, so that I would have a plan for life after sports, because I know that, I can't do this forever as much as I would love to. So that was really important to me. So I made an effort to, prioritize both when I could. And I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, brilliant. I know it's a vital one, and people talk about quite a lot, the struggle going through university or college and trying to learn at the same time and study. But it's great to have that example of yourself out there, that world champion, but still managed to get through and get your exams and get your education. Yeah. So after university, were you straight into the tour, or what was the kind of process from being a student into being a professional volleyball player?
Yeah, well, while I was at university, I was still doing a little bit of beach volleyball internationally, and so there were times where I would have beach practice in the morning. I'd have classes all day, then I'd have indoor classes at night. I would have indoor practice at night, and so I was kind of overloaded at one point, and at that time in my life, I made a decision to. It was my 4th year of university. I was going to have to quit indoor volleyball and commit fully to beach volleyball. So that's what I did in my last year of university. I was full-time beach volleyball and started to play on the senior world tour. But I slowly made my way up there. Like, it wasn't just like a direct entrance. I was playing the youth world tour events. We were posting up some good results and getting some medals there, which at the time, if you kind of won a medal, you would kind of be guaranteed a wild card into a Grand Slam or into a senior world tour event. So that's kind of how we made our way up there. And then once we solidified ourselves as like a main draw team on the senior world tour, we were always kind of in the middle of the pack at the time with my previous partner. And we never really broke through to the next level. We had kind of peaked and we were really great, but just, we weren't going to be able to make it to the next level together. And so I had the wonderful experience to go to the Olympics in 2016 as an alternate. And I think that was a pretty pivotal moment in my career, and a pretty life-changing opportunity for me. So I got to experience the Olympics. I got to see what goes on behind the scenes. I got to see all the nuances, how teams prepare, like the distractions of the Olympics. I got to see it all and get a taste of that, while also being there to prepare our team to play and to compete at the Olympics. I also got to really know Sarah Pavan, who was our team that was competing and representing Canada. And she got to really know me. And after the Olympics, her and her partner, they split. They had an incredible showing. They finished 5th at the Olympics, but they split. They wanted to go their different ways. And I think she saw a lot in me that she wanted to explore and saw some potential. And so she asked me to partner with her for the next quad heading into Tokyo. And so we did, and I was honored. It's Sarah Pavan. I don't know if you know her in Scotland, but she's a household name here in Canada. And I grew up knowing her, watching her play. And so I was honored that she saw and had faith in me and saw my potential. So it was an immediate yes. And I basically packed up, moved to California 4 years ago. And that's kind of where I've been ever since, just training with her.
Wow, so I actually had it on my list to speak to you a little bit about Rio, to see if how much that had prepared you for Tokyo. And you obviously kind of touched on it there, that chance to go there almost as a practice run, to see all the athlete arrangements and the training arrangements. do you feel as if it'll put you in a better position going to Tokyo as a player because you've had that chance? So although it's your first competing Olympics, you've had that kind of behind the scenes look, if you like.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that should be taken into consideration for every sport and every national team, to like bring a developmental team to kind of get a taste of what the Olympics is like, because going to the Olympics, it's a completely different ballgame. It's not like the same. It's not the same playing field at all, even though the game is the same, the teams are the same. It's the Olympic Games. It's more than just the competition. It's like the spectacle of the games. And that's what really throws people off. If you don't really know what to expect, and if you're going in as your first Olympics, you can really get carried away with it. It's so grand. So for me to have that kind of experience firsthand of what the Olympics were like, and yeah, the party scenes, the distractions, and, you know, we got to explore all of that. So I kind of got that out of my system in Rio. So heading to Tokyo, I'm like all focused, you know, head down. We're going to work hard to try and get a medal, and not really feel like I'm missing out on the experience, because I kind of had a taste of what the experience, the full experience was like. And I do owe a lot to that experience for sure. Rio was incredible.
Amazing. Is there any point, you know, you talked about maybe plateauing slightly. Was there any point where you thought, that's me, I've reached, you know, what I'm going to reach, and I'm going to look for other things? Or have you always been determined this is what it's going to be, and Rio just came at the right time to give you that further boost to push you on your career to where you are just now? Is there a slight close moment or a possibility at somewhere where you wouldn't be world champion just now? Did you ever consider giving the sport up?
No, I never considered giving the sport up. I knew I wanted to make 2 to 3 Olympic runs. I knew I wanted to be an Olympian. I knew I wanted to be a medal threat. I, at that time with my previous partner, I knew we had kind of reached our plateau, and I knew I still had more within me, and I wanted to reach more. I wanted to do better. And at no point did I think that I was going to stop playing at that point. I mean, I was 22 years old, 23. Like, I was still like quite young, and there was still a lot more that I knew that I could get better at. And even now, like, there's still so much more that I can get better at. And so, no, I knew I wanted more. And so when Sarah came and approached me to play with her, it was just like all the stars were aligning. It was like the perfect opportune moment to make it to the next level. And I feel very lucky that I had these opportunities presented to me. But at the same time, I feel like I put myself in the right positions and put in the hard work to put myself in those places to be recognized, or to, you know, get the attention of someone like Sarah, and to be able to put myself in a position to go to the Olympics as an alternate. I think that speaks volumes. And so a bit of both, a bit of luck and a bit of hard work.
It seems to have worked out pretty well for you, you know, talking about your last year there. So I want to probably dive in a little bit about that whole luck thing. And I heard you say earlier on I was born to be a beach volleyball player. And I think the times that I've been lucky enough to speak to people that have reached the real pinnacle in the sport, like yourself, they've really, really said it's all been about hard work, about dedication. It's about all the things that the general public don't see. It's not an overnight success. It's the missing the family parties, it's the 6 o'clock in the morning gym sessions, it's the double beach sessions, it's being away from your family for extended periods of time. And I think there probably is, even within the sport, not an understanding of just how much dedication and how much sacrifice goes into getting to the level that you're at. So, you know, without looking on maybe the negative side of things, can you maybe just give an indication when you're out on tour what your daily life looks like? You know, how much of a strain and toll it takes on your body, and just kind of what your day-to-day is, if you like. Yeah.
It's not glamorous. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is on Instagram. It's beautiful, and I'm lucky, and there's nothing else I would rather do, but it's not glamorous. It's really long plane rides. It's very tired and jet lag all the time. Every week we're kind of bouncing from continent to continent. You know, you would think that they would have a schedule a little bit better organized so that we just like travel within the same continent first and then move to another one. But no, we're like, there was a time I went from Dominican Republic to New York to China to, I think, Switzerland or something. It's just like you don't even know what time of day it is sometimes. You're just on flights all the time, super long flights. You get to this hotel. Sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not. And you are basically just in your hotel room at the venue and then back to your hotel room. Maybe you hit the hotel gym or you find a gym nearby. But that's kind of what life looks like. And you're kind of, it's not robotic in any way, but it's like a pretty regimented routine. You wake up, you train, you eat, you probably train again, you eat, and then you sleep and you do it all again the next day. Like, I go to these beautiful, beautiful places in the world and I don't really see it. Like, I come back and they're like, oh my gosh, how was Paris or whatever? I was like, I don't know. I didn't get to see it. I saw the hotel and I saw the venue, which was great. But yeah, I think there's a lot of sacrifices that go on behind the scenes. And sometimes we're on the road for like 6-7 weeks at a time. Like, my partner sees me more than she sees her own husband. I don't see my family for months and months and months at a time. Like, currently I haven't been home in 6-7 months. So it's tough. Like, it is tough. I think it makes you grow up really quickly. You have to be really reliant and independent. But I honestly wouldn't, as I'm saying this, I know it sounds kind of negative, I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I think it's the best job that I've ever had. It's exactly what I want to be doing. And I love it.
Brilliant. So any advice for, if you take it back to your younger self and spoke to that 12-year-old or 14-year-old self, if you're speaking to potentially one of our young Scottish athletes who would love that lifestyle that you've just explained there, despite all the traveling and all that kind of stuff, and they're still sitting there thinking, I want a bit of that. Is there what's your golden nugget of advice, your go-to bit of advice for that young male or female athlete?
Yeah. I think as I think back on my career, the one theme is really kind of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are a lot of things, especially in beach volleyball, that you have to do that you might not want to, and it's being able to take that risk, whether it's like in your comfort zone or not. I think the most important thing is you're going to have to leave it if you want to find success, and if you want to just even try. And I think that is honestly more important than finding success, is the pursuit of trying. And I'm just like taking that leap of faith. The worst thing that happens is, people say no, you fall flat on your face, but at least you tried. There are many times that I've fallen flat on my face, and you just kind of get back up, and then the next year, look, you're a world champion. Like, you never really know. Like, it's just, you really have to try and put yourself out there. I think it would have been really easy for me to say no to the opportunity of playing with Sarah and leaving everything that I'd known. I'd have to leave Toronto, my family, my friends, my support team, everything that I'd grown up with, and move to another country and start over again. And that can be really scary for a lot of people. That's a huge change. That's totally outside my comfort zone. But if I didn't, then I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be a medal threat going into the Tokyo Olympics, which is, what I've always wanted. So it can be daunting, it can be scary, and it's not ever going to be comfortable. But as long as you're just aware of that and okay with getting outside your comfort zone, beautiful things will happen.
Yeah, amazing. So probably to fast forward now or come back to 2020, because it's something obviously we need to talk about, as much as I think we'd all like to erase it from our memories. But as an elite sports person, you've been in such a high in 2019. You came into the new year, I'm sure, with all sorts of plans and preparation towards what was going to be an Olympics just now. You should be in Tokyo just now. So that's all thrown out in the air, or up in the air, sorry, and we find ourselves in lockdown. Did you stay in America for your lockdown, or did you go back to Canada, or was it a bit of both?
I've been all over the place. So in March 16th, actually, I left LA and I went back up to British Columbia, back to Canada. And I packed a carry-on because my plan was to be gone for like 2 weeks max. And then I would come back to LA and we would continue training for the Olympics. And then as soon as I landed in Canada, the borders closed. And so I was kind of stuck in BC we had no idea how long. Beaches started to close down here in LA, so no one could really train. And we were all on stay-at-home orders. And I was stuck in quarantine in British Columbia with a carry-on for 3 months. And what was supposed to be a 2-week trip turned into a 3-month trip. And we were, I was just kind of working out in my living room, just trying to stay fit because I had no idea when I was going to be back or what I would be back for. And like within those 3 months, obviously, you know, the Olympics got postponed. Our season, all of it got canceled. And yeah, it was a really challenging time, a lot of emotions. You know, we had to deal with a lot of, you know, mourning the loss of what we imagined 2020 to be, and what we had been working for 4 years, and, you know, dreams that I'd had since I was a young girl. Thankful though that it was only postponed and not canceled. It still put a wrench in, obviously, everybody's life. It really made me question and put things into perspective, but really made me question like who I am without sports, and kind of like look at myself in the mirror a little bit and like what my identity is. You know, I kind of started having to think about what I wanted to do after sports, because there was just so much uncertainty. And then, you know, I think about a month ago, we got a call from the AVP, and they were putting on this tournament, which was kind of scary, but kind of really exciting, and couldn't have come at a better time because we were both itching for something. We were both itching to like get back on the beach, to compete, to have some kind of normalcy back in our lives, to just have a routine and structure, and have a goal again. And so it was a no-brainer for us to say yes to this opportunity, provided that they were going to be like super safe and cautious and take all the proper measures, because COVID-19 is very real. We still are in the middle of a pandemic. So I flew down to LA about 4 weeks ago, and we started training for this tournament, and we're heading into our last week. I can't believe it's the last week this weekend, and then back to uncertainty, unsure of what I'm going to do. But the last little bit has been lovely to kind of just be back and training. Obviously very different. Like the competition venue looks different. The rules are all different. And being out here in LA, it's a hot spot for COVID. So we're being very safe. But yeah, it's been lovely. So I'm going to be heading back to Canada next week, and I'm very excited. I'm going to be in quarantine again for 2 straight weeks. I won't be able to leave the place that I'm staying at, but worth it, I think, for the last few weeks of competitive.
I'd read that when you went home to Canada and you were stuck in a house, you didn't even have access to a beach volleyball. Is that right? You found yourself back world champion with no ball to even train with. So I suppose, how did you adapt then? You know, and you've talked about where you had a bit of time to reflect, and you had a thought about post-career after sport and what it is, what's important to you. And I get that, and I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, because there's a lot more time at home and maybe time with people that they care about. But as an elite athlete, you've obviously got to keep yourself ticking over and keep the diet there and keep the exercise going. And how did you find transitioning back? I mean, I think I saw somewhere in one of your social media, your posts, your Facebook post, saying you hadn't really played for 10 months. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're back in at that, almost catapulted back into that elite level again. You know, were you physically prepared for it? Did the legs feel okay? Did it just go straight back into it?
No. This has been a very eye-opening experience, very humbling as well. You know, my ego took a shot when I first started back on the sand. When I was in Canada quarantining, we all agreed with my team, my coach, and my strength coach that this would be a perfect time to just kind of slow down. I think for everybody, to just kind of like take a break, decompress. You know, we don't have to kill ourselves trying to stay fit because we have no idea when we're going to come back to competition. So I took that time to really like explore different ways of staying active and activity, and looking at kind of like more lower impact movement for my body, and just letting it kind of like be more restorative in a way and work on those weaknesses. That meant I lost a lot of muscle and a lot of work that I put in the off season preparing for this summer and the Olympic Games that are supposed to be like next week, or actually like right now. But yeah, so I did see, you know, my body was changing a little bit, but I wasn't concerned about it because I found I was getting stronger in some weaknesses that I had. And I did have to be very mindful of not raiding the pantry all the time, because I'm very good at doing that. And then when we were discussing coming back to LA and start preparing, I was like, you guys, I'm not even like kind of close to being in playing form or playing shape. And we had like a 3-week lead up to like somehow reverse all of that and then perform. And it wasn't like just you're going to ease your way into it. This tournament is like the top 8 teams of the AVP. And, you know, one of the teams is the team we played in the finals of the World Championship.
Yeah.
So it's a high level. There's no like working your way into it. Like you got to like show up and you got to start playing. So it was a rude awakening when Sarah and I first got back on the beach, and we were like, wow, we have some work to do. The first tournament was a little rough. We were definitely working off some rust. The last tournament we just finished a couple days ago, it's like way better than the first time. And I think every time we get on the court and every time we start playing, a little bit of that rust comes off. But we're not in any kind of position to, I think people were expecting like Olympic level performances from us. And I don't think they realized that we were in quarantine for the last 3 months. So I think it's been really fun for Sarah and I to have to get creative and, work our way through it. A lot of patience involved, and just like being very forgiving and kind to ourselves. But it's been fun being out here again. And I think that was one of the main lessons and goals we wanted to have, was like to remember why we play this game, to remember how much fun it is to be on the court, to feel the love again of being reunited with the team and back on the sand. And whether or not we're performing to our best, we just want to be out here. We just want to get better, especially in the middle of a pandemic, it was really tough. And so I feel more like myself being out here, which is great. And having to kind of explore what life would kind of, or like have a taste of what life would be like without sports was a little kind of scary, but I'm glad I kind of had that perspective, because it really made me think about, I do want to go back to school at some point, further my education a little bit before kind of thinking about life after sport, what that looks like. But it's been a roller coaster, to say the least, all of this.
I know, right in saying you've had 3 competitions in the space of 3 weeks, basically. So your final one's this weekend coming, is that right?
Yeah.
And we're gradually better each one. So this is your weekend coming.
This is the one.
Yeah.
We finished third the first weekend. We finished second this past weekend. And so there's only, one more position we want to finish. So
that's a nice way to gradual back into it like that. So that's
exactly.
Really stylish. Probably just before I pass on to Martin then to talk some more about the kind of the technical stuff. Moving forwards, you've obviously got Tokyo next year. I don't know if you're aware, but today is 2 years to the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. Yeah. So they launched some stuff about where the beach was going to be. Is that on your radar yet to come back and defend your title at the Commonwealth Games?
We would love to. The Commonwealth Games, I think it was Sarah and I's first multi-sport game together. And I think it was super important for us to play in that, have that experience of being in a multi-sport game. And it's like a small Olympic game, right? And so I think for any athlete, that opportunity to play at a multi-sport game, to represent your country and to kind of mimic what the Olympic Games would be like, is so important. And we would jump on every opportunity to do that. So we haven't honestly thought too far, because, there's so many changes, but we had a blast the last Commonwealth Games, and we would love to represent Canada again there.
Great, fantastic. No, listen, thanks for that. I mean, if anybody that's watching has got any questions around your journey, then pop them into the comment section. We'll try and get to them. But I know Martin's...
I actually see a question from Katie.
Yes.
Okay.
What is my beach to gym training ratio?
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great question. So currently we're on the sand 4 times a week, usually Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we're in the gym about 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we'll get some treatment in between that, get some physio done, some active recovery, and then we compete usually on the weekends. So that's what our training looks like. And then in the off seasons, we're a little bit less on the sand, more in the gym. So probably about 4 or 5 times a week in the gym. That's when we really build up the bulk of our strength. And then we translate that to in the sand come preseason, where we're in the sand a lot more, probably 4 or 5 times a week. And then we lay off the gym a little bit more. Yeah.
Right, fantastic. I know Martin's been sent absolutely loads of questions, because there's a lot of the community that are really excited to be having you. So I'll pass you over to Martin. Thanks a lot for your time and explaining where you've been. It's really interesting, and all the very best luck for this weekend. We'll all be watching, I'm sure, and the future going forward.
Thank you so much. It was so fun talking to you, Blair.
Hi, Melissa. So I think the first we want to start on is where you've been the last sort of few weeks in terms of getting back to volleyball and back to the beach as well. If anyone who's not seen your YouTube channel, you've obviously done a blog over the last 3 weeks of getting back to beach volleyball. I think anyone who has seen it, I think they want you to explain what fudgesicles means.
Yes.
Yes.
That is a great question. That's a word that comes out of my mouth sometimes. And usually when there are kids around, I will say fudgesicles, or when, I have time to monitor the words that come out of my mouth, but what I really want to say is something a lot more vulgar. I'll say fudgesicles as a replacement.
No, that's good. I think, yeah, as part of that blog, there was some tasty words in there as well, which we won't probably mention.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also another part of it where your coach gave you some really nice advice about that getting back to playing beach volleyball is just like learning to ride a bike. So did you feel like you were learning to ride a bike again?
It felt like I was learning to ride a unicycle when I first got back, and then slowly it felt like I was riding a bike. I think my coach went about the process of coming back onto the sand extremely well, and we did it very slowly. And we started with like the fundamentals, the very basics of just getting that feel again. We train here in California. Hermosa Beach has like the deepest sand in the entire world. So it's really, you just want to get your sand legs again. You want to get comfortable. So we worked our way slowly into it. Like the first 2 weeks, it was just me and my coach one-on-one. I didn't even see Sarah until my third week being here. And we didn't really have very many team practices before we started competing because we just kind of wanted to focus on our individual skills. And then we just relied on that coming together in competition. And then once the first tournament was done, we started to compete a little bit more and started to see more of the team. But yeah, it's been a process. It's been a process. I've had to be very kind to myself.
So in terms of, you just talked about your coach there, obviously Scott Davenport.
Mm-hmm.
How big is your team that you have behind you?
We have Coach Scott, and then we have 2 assistant coaches that help us out and have been helping us out for the last few years. Alex and Chris, they're great. They're younger players that just kind of volunteer their time to help us out, and they learn a lot from being at our practices, and we've learned a lot from them. So it's been great having them. And we also have our stats guy, who happens to be my partner Sarah's husband, Adam, who's often there helping us out and creating game plans for us and whatnot. And we also have a sports psych that helps us out as well. We have a very large team. We're very lucky to have such a great support system.
Well, that's fantastic. Obviously, these are the guys who helped you get to where you are, and being world champions, they're obviously part of that team, so they feel the success as much as you guys.
100%. Yeah. And they actually don't really get enough of the credit. These are the people behind the scenes that nobody knows about, but that get us to where we get to, and none of it would be possible without them.
Oh, fantastic. So just in terms of your relationship with Sarah, what do you think makes your partnership so good?
That's a great question. We have really put in a lot of work in our partnership. I think at this level, everyone has really great skills. Everyone's physically fit. We can all play volleyball, but it's like the little details and being able to manage the relationship and the partnership that I think sets the best teams apart from the rest. And that takes a lot of work. I think that takes a lot of like self-reflection and being able to look yourself in the mirror and be accountable for maybe some flaws in the way you communicate or approach the game. And so it took a lot of introspection on my end and both Sarah's end to create this really solid partnership that we have. It honestly truly is like a marriage. Like there's so much you have to learn about each other. There's so much that you will compromise on and sacrifice for each other. I think the best thing about us is that we really allow each other to be who we are. We're both very different people, physically and personality wise. I'm more extroverted. She's definitely more introverted, but we appreciate and respect and love every single thing about that person. And we also push each other. She pushes me to be the best version of myself, and I think she sees a lot more potential in me than I see in myself. And so it's nice having that faith and that trust in someone next to me. And, you know, we're the only people out there on the court. Like, our coach isn't out there helping us along the way when we're in a game. So we have to have that vulnerability and that trust between each other. But when it comes to high pressure moments, we can count on that person being there and having our back the whole time. So a lot of things. I don't think I answered your question.
That's okay. That's good. There's no one thing that makes a good team. So in terms of team dynamics in gameplay or tournament play, what roles do you both play in terms of in the game? Do you have specific roles, or is it just let's try and work out together?
We definitely try and work it out together. I think Sarah's always been so steady for me. I think you can kind of tell she's like so even keel. She brings a lot of intensity, but in a different way. And she, I know I can always rely on her. I know she always has my back, and she'll always push me and tell me, or tell it like it is in the middle of a game. And I love that kind of honesty and that vulnerability. And I will kind of be there, and I want to make sure that she is smiling and having a good time, and that we're both enjoying being there. Sometimes it's really easy to get swept away with results and with distractions. And at the end of the day, we play this game because we love it. And I like being that kind of reminder to her that, you know, like, just to step back and like look at what we're doing, you know, and we're in Germany playing in front of 15,000 people at the World Championships in the finals. Like, how lucky are we? So I think we do work together a lot, but we each bring different things. And I think I bring a little bit more of like the spicy energy, and I think we complement each other really well.
Definitely. Do you feel that's the makeup of a good team? Is it someone has to be that sort of cheerleader, and someone needs to bring some calmness?
I think that works really well for our team. I've seen some other teams be really successful, and they're both like even keel, like there's no energy whatsoever, and they're so successful. I've seen like both people be like the cheerleaders and each other's hype women, and that's a lot. Also, it's a lot of work, but it works. So I think it totally depends on how you manage your team and what kind of dynamic you want to be able to bring on the court. But as long as it's not forced and it's natural, then that's all you can really ask for.
No, fantastic. Just getting into a bit of the technical aspect now. Obviously, as the best defender in the world, some of the questions we've been asked are, in terms of when you're in that defensive position, what are you looking at?
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting, actually. This past offseason, I did a study, or we did an experiment back in Canada. I was wearing some glasses, and they were tracking what my eye progressions were looking at when I'm on defense. And we found out a lot of what I'm looking at, and I think I knew this too, is the hitter mostly. Like, I see exactly where the set is, and as soon as I see where that apex is, I move to the hitter, and I look at their body language, their positioning. I look at like all the tells that we've been studying prior to that game, what kind of gives they're going to tell, and their tendencies. And that will kind of help decide what I want to do on defense. So if I can get on that early, then it will be a lot easier for us. So I usually look body position, their approach speed, their approach force, and then I look at like the little nuances, like elbow. Do they drop their elbow? What are they doing with their wrist? Where's their shoulder? What's their back? Like, where's the ball in relation to their center of gravity? Where's their shoulder? So like things like that, like the small. And it took me years and years and years to like really figure it out, because it's a lot. It's a lot of information to handle, and there was a lot, like, for the majority of my career, I never really looked at those little nuances until I got to the higher level. And like, it's those little things that at this level you have to start picking out, because everybody's so good. So it's like little things like that I would look for. And that's Definitely what I try and study.
See, as well as being the best defender in the world, I think you're also regarded as one of the best transition players in the world. So I think what we need to divulge into is, you make the great dig, you make a lot of good digs. So how do you go from making that really good dig to preparing to then play offense, and that sort of time and thinking process in between that dig to what you're going to do next?
I appreciate that. It doesn't really feel like that at the moment, but I think a lot of a lot of that I have to give credit to Sarah, who will always, more often than not, put me in a really good position to hit a ball. It's not easy to transition set. And so what I've had to work on a lot too is making sure that it's really easy as a defender to like make a dig if you're on the floor to like get up and rush the set. And so for me, it was really important, which is something I used to do. It was really important to be patient and wait, put myself in a really good position to see where the set is. It also gives me time to kind of analyze what's going on the other side. And at the end of the day, I think in transition, you want to bring the same amount of aggression and purposeness, I guess, in making sure that your shots are just as clean on side out as they are in transition. And so it's a lot easier in a way because the other side is usually out of system. You know, when you're in the middle of a rally, no one's kind of like set up exactly as how they would be in a side out transition. So I think it's easier to catch people off guard as long as you know, put pace on the ball and like are really direct and purposeful with what you're trying to do. It should work out.
Yeah. And what happens when it doesn't work out?
Well, if it doesn't work, so what I think better at doing is not really making a ton of errors. So I'll put the ball over. It might not score right away, but it'll set us up for another opportunity to dig again and to like give ourselves another chance to transition. So that's something I'm also really mindful of. I will still, you know, put aggression and try and take risks, but I know one of our strengths is defense. So if I don't really feel like I'm in the best position, I'm not going to try and risk it in a way that might cause an error. I'm going to want to keep it in place so that we get another opportunity to bring it back up and hopefully get ourselves in another position to get that point.
Okay. Do you also believe that your defense, the success of your defense, is down to the sheer blocking prowess of Sarah?
I think it has a lot to do with that. And I think it's easy. A lot of people don't understand, maybe who don't know the game as well, what her presence does to an attacker and how much that relieves pressure off of me as well. So just having her presence and her physical self up at the net and taking space, she funnels balls right to where we want them and right to where we plan for them to be. And just having someone who's 6'5", you know, the shots are a little bit higher, so it's easy for me to run down. So I think, you know, we do a really great job of complementing each other on defense. And if I get a lot of digs, it's only because she is taking the right amount of space away and we're running the right amount of plays. So I think she is, you know, just as good a defender as I am.
Definitely. We've just had a question from Katie again. Katie is one of our up-and-coming beach players. She's played for Scotland a few times now. And she's just asked what top 3 tips you'd give someone to improve their defensive play.
I love that. Great question. Okay. So, I mean, one of the tips that really helped me initially was being able to kind of like stay patient and like stable in my defensive position first. I think it's really easy to like move around a lot when you're trying to like second guess. For me, it was, I had to be very patient and stable in my my defensive like starting position and then start looking at the tells. And so that took like a lot of years of studying the other players and studying hitting nuances so that I could get like a split second jump start on where I think they're gonna, or what I read they're gonna do. So that's one of the tips. It's like kind of the first one is like being like steady, don't be jumping around, stay solid, not like dug in, but like on your toes, ready to move. Once you see that tell, that's when you, which is my second tip, that's when you become like a sprinter first. If it's a shot, you like sprint to the ball. You want to become like a track athlete. And then once you get to the ball, then you become a volleyball athlete again. And for me, that was really important with my mindset because as a defender, it's really easy to like see a shot and be like, oh, I can't get that. But if you like take yourself out of that mindset to be like, yes, I can go for every single ball. At least I'm going to try and sprint to every single ball. I was shocked at how many more touches I was getting. And even just getting a touch does wonders to yourself, to your own mental talk, but also to the other team. Like if you get touches on these balls and these are some of like the best hitters and their best shots and you're still able to get a touch on it, they're going to start feeling like they're going to have to go sharper and sharper and sharper. And then you're going to force them into errors or you will get the digs eventually. And then, gosh, I don't know. Was that 2 tips? Third tip. Honestly, listen to your instincts and like trust your gut sometimes. Sometimes you're going to be wrong, sometimes you're not. But a lot of the times when I listen to my gut, and oftentimes it goes against what the play Sarah and I might be running, Sarah will be like, "Oh my God, how did you read that?" And I was like, honestly, I just trusted my gut a little bit. I think that's important too. Like it's not always just like a chess game. Sometimes you just like go with the flow. Those are probably my best tips I could give you.
Fantastic. So in terms of, you just mentioned there about you and Sarah communicating as well. How much do you guys have to communicate during the game or during the rally to make sure that you know where the spaces are, you know where the block defense is breaking, all these sort of things? So how often are you communicating, or is it set plays?
No, we're constantly talking. We will always have a set play to start, but when the rallies are going, you know, we might not be verbally talking. We might tell each other, we might call audibles on like certain plays. If we want to switch an audible, we will call it off and just go back to a basic ball block. But a lot of the time, Sarah will be in mid rally. She'll be giving me another call or tapping a leg, telling me what kind of side she wants to take. And so mid rally, we're talking a ton. If it's not verbally, it's like with our hands. And so we're always making adjustments on the fly. I think that's so important. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're so good.
Yeah, definitely. You were talking about there about set plays and things like this. So obviously watching you over the weekend, there's some form of expansion side out play you're looking at, where you're obviously passing it to Sarah at the antenna. She's now setting the ball 6-7 meters. How long does it take you to work on these sort of set plays?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have been bringing that up lately, and that's actually that was one of our greatest threats when we first started playing, was to have this kind of spread offense. When we found out that we would be a good match, and I was going to be on the left side, Sarah as a lefty is going to be on the right side, we knew immediately that, and I had good ball control, we knew immediately that that's something that we wanted to exploit, was to use that opportunity of having the two ball as a threat. If I could like feed it to her on serve receive to make the blocker stay, and then you know, if she felt that she could within a good enough position to set me and the blocker was with her, then she would just shoot it out to the pin where I was. And that made us a really big threat internationally. I think that's why we were so good so quickly. And you see a lot of other teams adopting it as well. And it's a really hard play to defend. So it took a lot of trial and error on exactly like the locations we wanted to be passing it to, how big we wanted our spread to be, how I would, as like kind of the first pass of the play, I needed to be really deliberate and really intentional with my touch. I think it can be really easy to overpass it or underpass it, and so then you negate the play altogether. But it really just comes down to the fundamentals of the game, which is pass set. When you're able to do that, then your offense just becomes so easy and a huge threat. But it does take some practice, and we're slowly getting back into it. I think we went away from it for a little bit. I wanted to try some other things, but I think, you know, we're getting back to it slowly, and this is a good time to experiment and try new things. You know, we're just getting back into the game again, and it's just fun to be out there and be creative and unique again and just experiment.
Yeah, clearly that sort of tactic as well also brings in that second ball attack that you guys are obviously extremely good at. So that holding the blocker obviously helps you guys as well to create some more space for yourself.
Right.
In terms of the trial and error of that, how much do you look at the wind, etc., in practice and say maybe not today, or do you say yeah, let's go for it? No.
We take that into consideration because it's such a precise play, and the ball control has to be like on point. If it's a windy day and if we feel like we're going to be off a little bit, we make an audible call and we say no, we're not gonna necessarily run it that large of a spread. We might run some other things. We might run some tempo balls. We might run some back sets, but we also look at what direction the wind is going. So if we're on a bad side, we might not run it on that side. But if the wind is with me, then we'll still run it. But we're very mindful of everything that's going on because I think it's a very touchy play and it's precise. So yeah, we take that into consideration.
Fantastic. So we've touched on about how good you are defense, amazing. Transition play, amazing. Systems and communication, amazing. So in terms of one of the other big things that you're obviously amazing at is setting. So going to throw it out at you. We just want to know a little bit more about what process you go through from that ball being served to Sarah and the process you go through to go from, am I going to hand set, am I going to bump set, am I going to, which point of location I'm going to go to. So just a bit about your mindset going into that process.
Yeah. Honestly, hand setting was one of the skills that I was really afraid of when I was younger, because I think there's a lot of room for error, and I think it's really easy to shy away from those skills where it's risky. And, you know, as a player, you're like, well, I don't want to get called on a hands play when I could just bump set it. So I really had to get away from that mindset, because I found that I was way more consistent as a hand setter, and I was getting it exactly to where I wanted it. So more often than not, my good hand sets that were coming out clean were allowing the transition or the side out to be way more efficient than if I was bump setting, and it might not always be the exact location that I wanted. And so rallies would drag on for a little bit longer. So for me to just kind of like force myself to hand set was very important. And it didn't start clean, like it wasn't always clean. But it's something that I worked on for years. And the way that I kind of got more comfortable with it was trying different weighted balls as well. So I would start hand setting with like a lighter ball than a volleyball, and then like a heavier weighted ball, just to kind of get the touch and the feel for it and the strength. And then I'd go to a regular size volleyball. And so just having those different tactiles and the different weights of balls to be hand setting made me a lot more comfortable with hand setting a regular volleyball. That's kind of how I just started with that. And then I find people also, there's a misconception about hand setting, and that it's like an upper body movement, but it's like 110% a lower body movement. Being able to get your feet there first is like the most important thing, and will pretty much minimize any risk for getting called on a double or a lift. And it's really easy to not put in the work and not put in the extra steps to get there, because it is exhausting. And when you're tired at the end of the game, you're like, I really don't want to hand set this, but I know it's better for the team. Was really, I think, important for me to do. And then like the more I did it, the more comfortable I got. Hand setting is also almost 90% confidence. If you think you're a hand setter, and if you're going to force yourself to hand set, you get more comfortable with it, and you just kind of have to like show up and convince yourself that you're a hand setter, and it just will come more naturally to you. I think another reason why I might be considered one of the best setters in the world is because of who my partner is, and being able to kind of like set her up on two a lot in transition digs, in the middle of rallies. I think that's like usually my first thought is to like make this dig good enough for Sarah to hit. If it's good enough for her to hit, it's good enough for her to set. So that's something that I think about constantly as a digger, and I've worked on that a lot as well. So I'm not just trying to get the ball up. I'm trying to be very precise with my ball in defense as well. And I'm always ready to hit, but like if she can hit it, that's way better.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of your discussions with coach before the games, things like that, how much creativity does he allow for these sort of things for the second? Is it really being opportunistic, or is it, this is a really good tactic we're going to use for this?
Yeah, he's all about the creativity and pushing the limits, and he's been a huge influence on making our game a little bit more unique, and utilizing our strengths and whatnot, and just like pushing the limits a bit. So he's all for doing everything, and it's more just like us trying to like manage the risk in a game and like our comfort levels. But a lot of the times we will kind of be in charge of making the plays happen. So it's not just like, if it's there, take it. It's like, no, we're going to be deliberate about this. So we're going to set this play up. And we're going to allow the two ball to happen. We're going to allow this to happen. We're going to allow this spread to happen. And again, it all comes down to like that first contact, which is something that I really pride myself in. And Sarah does as well. Like, we have really good touch on the ball. We have really great ball control, and that allows all of the rest to kind of like fall into place. So when that does go awry and we're kind of forced to play a more basic vanilla game, like that's when I think we're not as strong. And so it also forces teams to really bring their A game on serving, which when they do, they do. Like this past weekend, April definitely brought her A game on the serve, and she was able to kind of like neutralize our option balls and our spread as well. So I think it really forces teams to take that risk, and sometimes it goes their way and sometimes it doesn't. Like maybe they start missing a lot more serves. So if we can kind of perfect that first ball contact, it opens up doors for us.
Yeah, I think one of the things of watching this weekend was quite nice to see is that even at the elite level, you guys are using tournaments to try things. Obviously, Sarah trying to jump serve and things like that. So it's actually quite good just to see these sort of things, what's going on, and how the elite level want to try different things as well. So it's going to improve their game.
Yeah.
And obviously, watching the final, the serving from the Americans was just came out of nowhere. And obviously, the amount of tapes that you had to try and face as well.
Gosh.
There's a few there.
We definitely practiced that today at practice. We had to kind of fire the top of the tape, and we'd have to get well. But yeah, they were on fire.
Definitely. Just talking a little about the AVP. Obviously, in the UK, we play a lot of just the FIVB rules, so nobody really understands the freeze rule. Could you explain it a little bit to us in terms of what happens with the threes? Obviously, Elaine Donald's here asking if the freeze happens in international play too. No, so we want to know in terms of Scotland, what does the freeze play actually mean?
Yes, no, the freeze is just an AVP rule. And when it first started, we were not a fan. I think it depends on what side of the freeze you're on, but essentially on match point, the game is frozen and the game reverts back to old rules where you can only score when you're serving. So it's like old school volleyball. That's what happens when the freeze hits. And so in order to win, you have to earn the ball, and the ball can't touch on service. The ball can't touch the net, the top of the tape. It's a reserve if that happens. Again, old school rules. So I think it's a nod to the old game, which is fun, and I think it makes it exciting, and it gives a chance for the I guess the team that's losing to kind of like put in a fighting effort and make the game a little bit closer, make it a little bit more entertaining. And I think it also gives us throughout the whole game the mentality of, just keep it within a couple points. Even if we're down by a few, just keep it within a couple points, because when we hit the freeze, we're going to have a chance to kind of like crawl our way back up. So it's fun and exciting on both ends. We've been burned by the freeze a couple times where we've been up, a freeze happens, and then the team will make this crazy comeback. And so you see some like really, really crazy games happening. But we've also been really lucky in being on the losing end of the freeze. We can like fight our way back into it. So it's fun. I think it gives you the mentality the game's not really over until it's over, because you always have a chance to come back in it, which is fun. But it does prolong games quite a bit.
Yeah, fantastic. We've just got another couple of questions, and then you're free to go and lift those weights.
Yeah.
So in terms of setting, so we've got some top tips from you on defense. Okay, what would be your 3 top tips on setting?
Yeah, I think the first tip would have to be when you're releasing from the pass, to not overrun the set. You kind of want to time it with the pass. There have been many times where I would just kind of like penetrate to the net, but the pass might be off, and so then you're out of position to set the ball, and then it becomes a lot riskier for an error. And so you really want to be mindful of like tracking where the serve is going, where your partner is, what her passing position is like, and then you can like get your feet to the ball a lot faster. I think it's easier to work forwards than it is backwards, and then try and push the ball back. So being patient on serve receive and tracking the ball is probably my first tip. And then getting ready to move your feet and use your legs. Like it's fully a lower body movement. I think if you can get under the ball, put yourself in a really proper position, it should be just as simple as just like imagining you have a pole coming out of your forehead, and then just like moving your hands along that pole. And if you can get your ball to where that pole would be, then the outcome would be a lot more successful, a lot more consistent. And honestly, practice yourself. Like a lot of the times I'll just take a ball and I'll start spinning it and just like hand set it to myself, and just I would be found in the garage or in the basement just hand setting balls against a wall just to myself, lying down, trying different weighted balls as well. just lots of practice just to get that feel for it. I think especially coming from indoor, a lot of indoor players have kind of like quick, fast hands. And I think it's important in the beach to just kind of like let it just be relaxed. Let it be like a really flow, smooth movement. And just it's a natural, I think it's just a natural movement in the beach, but a lot of people are afraid of it. I think it's intimidating, but it just comes with practice and confidence.
Yeah, I think that was one of the comments one of your colleagues, Steve Anderson, made as well. He said just keep the ball in motion, which is always I thought that was a really good tip for hand setting as well. So it's not just get rid of it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions. Another one from Katie. So you're not. She was wrong on that one. She said this one instead. Do you have any favorite drills in either the gym or sand to improve your speed in the court?
I do. Yeah. I mean, in the gym, a lot of the work we do to improve speed would be like Olympic lifting. And I kind of leave that up to my strength coach because he knows what to do and I really don't. I'm actually like clueless when I go to a gym and I don't have a program in front of me, but we do a lot of kind of speed work that way to just improve velocity. But when I'm in the sand, one of my favorite defensive drills is, and I think it does work with speed, but it's more so just like reactionary, is I'll be in my defensive position. I'll have my head down and my coach will be on a bench on the other side of the net and he'll say up or he'll slap the ball. And then he'll hit the ball. And so as soon as I hear the slap or up, I look up and then I have to react right away to wherever he hits it. And like, it's all open. He could just hard driven attack at me. He could cut shot it. He could jumbo. He could line shot. It's all open. And so I have to react right away. And so when that happens, as soon as I look up, I'm focused, I'm zeroed in and I just like run and chase balls, but I'm also not cheating because I know I have that option of having a hard driven at me. So I have to be ready at all times. That's probably one of my favorite drills. And it like really gets me amped up for defensive drills. I like doing that before a competitive day of practice. It just gets my juices flowing. I really like that one.
Nice. So we have a question from John Scrimger. Where is it? Somewhere here. Oh, there we are. Your early life had some influence from your parents on your ability to play volleyball. What aspects of the game and personal qualities did you work on from then to the start of your university career?
What aspects of the game, personal qualities did I work on from them? From my parents? Or from my early life?
So what aspects of the game and personal qualities did you work on from the start of your, beginning to play volleyball to the start of your university career?
Gosh, well, I think heading into my university career, I was already, I felt I was already pretty solid in the way I was approaching the game. And I think that had to do with starting with beach volleyball first. I think it made me more of a well-rounded player, being forced to be able to be good at every single skill. And so when I got to university, when I got to play the indoor game, I was able to play most positions except for middle and right side. But I felt I was a utility player and I kind of wanted to be that person that could kind of like fit in any role. And it also came with the mindset. I feel like coming from the beach game, I had like a really hard work ethic. Not that you don't in indoor volleyball, but I think I really wanted to prove myself to like be able to be useful in multiple areas of the game. And so heading into my university career, that's kind of really what I wanted to bring to the team. And in terms of my personal qualities, I think being a beach player, you really had to kind of like think for yourself. You have to be really independent. You don't necessarily have a coach there all the time with you when you're competing. You don't have substitution. So you had to be, you had to kind of like work on your mental game. You had to figure it out for yourself while you're on there. You had to be like quick at adjustments and you had to figure it out, just you and your partner. So I think that helped me out in all aspects of my life too, not just on the court, is being resourceful and having to kind of problem solve on the fly. And yeah, I think those are probably the things that helped me get to where I am, if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've got one last question from one of our Commonwealth Games athletes. who you competed against. So how do you use your timeouts? Do you talk tactics, compose yourself, or do you do different things in different situations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's been so fun about the AVP is that they give you insight into our timeouts. The live coverage on Amazon, they have like mics and stuff, and our coaches are mic'd up, so you can literally hear exactly what we're talking about during timeouts. And it's been really interesting to hear comments about that. But we do a lot of tactics, especially having our coach around there. We definitely talk about what's been going right, what's been going wrong, things we want to adjust. We also talk about the next play. So like we'll spend some time talking about the past, although we try not to focus too much on it, but we just like touch on what's going right, what we want to adjust, and then we start focusing on the plays we want to run in the future. What we want to like right out of the timeout, exactly what it is we want to do, what kind of set plays we want to run, if we want to try anything new. And sometimes we have a timeout where it's literally just catching your breath, just drinking some water. Sometimes you don't really need to say anything in a timeout, but more often than not, we're usually talking shop.
Yeah. And that sort of thing, is that a superstition, or is it just that's the way you are?
I think a bit of both. I think I used to be a very superstitious player when I was younger, and I like had to have the same hair tie. I had to do the exact same routine. I had to like, if we were winning and we were wearing a uniform, you know, we were going to wear that same uniform the next game, and that got gross. So we don't do that anymore, because I think it's really easy to let like outside factors influence how you approach the game or how you play. And I think if you like leave it up to chance, then you're basically giving and relinquishing your control. And I think as an athlete, as a volleyball player, one of the most important things you can control is how you approach the game mentally. And so yeah, I try and avoid superstitions now. I mean, there are some things here and there, like I'll listen to like a solid song just to get my juices going. But you know, if I don't have that right hair tie, I'm not going to freak out about it. But yeah, I kind of just like approach each game however I'm feeling that day, that mood, and how we prepare the team together.
Yeah, well, fantastic. So obviously, we don't want to keep you too long. You do have a performance life to live, so getting you back to the gym. So Blair, if you
Melissa, I just wanted to say on behalf of Scottish volleyball and everybody that's tuned in to watch it, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's been really interesting. I know we'll all be glued to Amazon Prime to watch the final match, and we'll all be rooting for you moving forward. So we'll just drop you off backstage. We'll catch you for 2 seconds before you disappear. We'll just round up here. So again, thank you very much, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for
Martin. So we are, if I'm still here on Thursday, but we're moving on. We've got Mark up on Thursday, haven't we, Martin Gifford? So I know you're with us, but we've got another special guest announcer, a nice presenter, and Ali Jack joining us. Is that right? I don't know if he knows that yet. Yes, we have.
So, no, Ali knows that. He's very excited about joining as well and making his debut on SVA Online. So, yes, we're delighted to have Mark in and giving us insight into where he started in the fun lands of Fife and taking himself to Olympics and then full-time professional abroad. So, yes, very much looking forward to hearing what Mark has to say and what information he can give our players out there, which can help them on their journey.
Fantastic. Folks, thank you very much for taking part tonight. Thanks for all the comments. If you are watching this back in future, just put a wee comment on to say that you're watching it in replay so we can kind of keep tracking when you're watching it live or watching it in replay. And hopefully I'll see you all back here on Thursday night. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you very much.